Hi everybody, it's Mike Brown. This is my Module 6 discussion post. The first small portion of it will be about the architecture, my floor plan, and then the second majority of the post will be about my analysis of my blended technology. So first off, as far as the architecture goes, I did create two floor plans. This one, as the post said, would be kind of my ideal. If I was given a blank slate of a classroom and said, go wild, which we all know is a very rare occurrence, but every once in a while, dreams do come true. So I set up a 30 by 30 room, which is a huge room. However, it is an ideal situation. That way there's some extra space in between. So as you can see, I have over here, this is where I would assume the door would be. Coming in, the teacher's desk is there to greet the students as they come in, and just kind of give that presence to the students when they walk into the classroom. I have it broken into three major coordinates here. So up here in the top right corner is the teacher-led instruction station, and that's where it's a more traditional style. There's separate desks, and there is a projector mounted with the ability for the teacher to do a small group instruction, and that's going to be kind of more of a teacher focused content delivery area. As the students would rotate, I have a student independent station. I use the computer desks. Now, my students actually have laptops through the district. However, these tables I thought were an appropriate size as opposed to the student table, which you can see here is a little bit bigger. The if I break it up with the independent workstation, the students would need some extra table space to do experimentation or calculation, spread some stuff out. But I didn't think they needed an entire table to themselves, so that's kind of why I used those in this makeup. You can see there's 12 tables there for students to sit at, so that's kind of the number I stuck with in my rotation, as 12 is an appropriate number. As my classes are built right now, I range somewhere around 27 to 30 kids, so it does give me room to increase if I needed to as well. As far as the next and final station that I have would be this bottom corner here, and that's the student choice station. And this is where the students would be able to do kind of catch up on their own work, kind of enrichment, because they've finished other tasks, such as those things. So this area I wanted to make a little bit more not as structured as the other two. So I have different types of seating. You can see I have the beanbag chairs in there. Some just comfortable seating where the students would kind of nestle up and be able to kind of do their own thing. I also, for students that wanted a more structured setting, I put some student tables there as well. So hopefully the students can find where they want to work during that time in the class period. I did, like I said, make two floor plans. The first one was my ideal. I did make one that is, if I had to set it up in the classroom I have now, the black border here is counter space, and then these are my lab tables, these larger spots here. So this is kind of what my classroom looks like now if I had to fit the different stations into that existing structure. So you can see, because of the lab tables, I was able to use this side over here as the student independent station. I have the teacher-led station up at the front with the projector again. I put the teacher desk here because what I didn't include, because I didn't build it, was a demonstration table, which is up here, which would limit where the teacher desk would be. And then finally down here in the corner, I have a little less seating as far as the plush seating, but I do have all of these lab tables back here that the students could spread out for the self-choice station. So it could still work. I could still fit the same amount of people. It's a little bit tighter for space, but it would definitely work out. For the analysis of the blended technologies, the one I signed up for was called Hippocampus, which is a play on words. And before I even looked into the depth of this program, said it was powered by NROC, and I didn't know what that meant, so I checked out what NROC was. So it's the NROC project, which stands for Network Resources Open and College and Career, which essentially they are kind of set up to help get high quality multimedia systems and presentations out to as many educators as they can in an open and free way. Which is a very noble empowering kind of project to be set up in the educational world, and I think it's really cool. So to Hippocampus, as you can see, it does look a little busy at first if you're trying to dial in what's going on here. There's not a lot of graphics per se. There is the cycling screen here. However, we'll get to the analysis of that a little later. To dive into this, I am a science background person, so I am going to look at the chemistry aspect of this because that's what a majority of my curriculum is based around. So if I click here on chemistry, it'll take me into a mainly science chemistry related topic. Okay, and there's a whole bunch of topics on here as you saw on the main page, but like I said, I'm going to dial in with the chemistry just to kind of give you a taste of how this works. As far as the system goes, it's set up into two main choices, at least for the science aspect, which is presentations and simulations. So the presentations, if I click on one here, let's go to chemistry, the chemistry tab, and I go up to the introduction to the atom. So as you can see over here in this side screen, it sets up a presentation window that you are able to then play this video. I won't for the sake of the sound, but it'll present a person lecturing about the content, and that is, as you would see in an Edgenuity type setting or any other online kind of presentation mode. The really cool thing though is it pulls these resources from already available set up resources on the internet like Khan Academy, and there's also stuff coming from NASA. So those are the presentation modes. There's also simulations. So here there is the Concord Consortium collection. So if I go to chemistry here and boiling point, it'll load a simulation based around boiling point. Takes just a couple seconds for the simulation to load in, and you'll be able to look at this and do some manipulatives to it, and then if you run the simulation, you can see how changing different things can change this. So we can heat it up, and you can see the motion of the molecules. Okay, so the simulations are really clean and they're really useful. They also have the PHET, which it's escaping me what that stands for right now. Physics and education and technology, maybe? I don't remember exactly. But their simulations are just as good. If I go over here to states of matter, because it's kind of what we're looking at now, you'll see you can load this up, and it too has kind of its own setup. We can heat this up, and as we heat it up, the molecules start to spread out. So it's really cool, and the simulations work, and they would be really effective tools to use in the classroom. The part that I found extremely impressive, though, is sometimes these systems tend to rely on themselves for all the content, but what this does is it pulls from outside resources, but it also lets you manipulate it as well, which I think is really cool. So if I go here, I created a test class, and what they call this is a playlist. So if I clicked on this, it gives me an introduction or a list of things that I have assigned this class. Okay, and so I can do the introduction to the atom, which we've already talked about, the states of matter that we just saw, but then you can link to outside resources. So in this case, I have Millersville's webpage, so you can link to Millersville's webpage. You can link to a YouTube video if there's something that you want the kids to see. So here's a university aerial tour that I found on Millersville just for demonstration purposes. Okay, and it loads it right here in the window. You can also upload Google Docs. And the Google Doc can link to this, and you would be able to share this with the students and allow them to manipulate this document. And what I thought was really cool was that you can link Google Forms, and therefore you can add assessments. So in all of that, you can add all these pieces and make this actually a pretty robust LMS with the connections to those other pieces. As long as you're able to manipulate the other pieces, this thing can get pretty in depth at how it meets the student's needs. As far as looking at the readings and the evaluations of these online technologies, kind of going through the list. The first one was on graphics, and as I said, there isn't a ton of graphical presentation here. It's actually a little word heavy, I think, so the students could get a little bored by that. But what is presented is nice, crisp, and clean. They also have the simulations, which are very clean, and they run surprisingly well. Sometimes those simulations can get really buggy, so they seem to work well, the ones that I looked at through here. The next point was the learning path point. There isn't a defined learning path. However, the teachers can set up those playlists, which is really cool, and you can make unlimited playlists. So I don't know if you would want to go through and make one for every student, but I don't think there's anything stopping you. However, you could make one for each class if you have leveled classes, or by groups if you group your students. So I think that's really cool. And those playlists kind of work like I showed you by bringing all those different pieces into one area, and that's all the students would see, and they would be able to follow through in that listed format. You're even able to change the priority level. So as the students finish topic A, then it'll take them to B, and you can order them how you would like. As far as the interactivity, because of the way it's organized and a lot of the simulations, I think uh, the website, the source here is very interactive. Even looking at, if you go into the math sections here, they too have a lot of content, but they have the presentations, examples, and then simulations. So you can see kind of how, I think the work examples is how is actually having teachers in front of the students, and then they would be solving the problems for them, which is really cool. With assessments, there isn't any true inbuilt assessments that I saw. A couple of the activities, for instance, if I go back to the chemistry, I think one of them had, or sorry, earth science. There was one in earth science that I found that had a activity that then had questions that went with it, but they were kind of self-check. All you had to do was click to reveal the answer. However, the ability to link a Google form to it would allow you to run assessments through this that would then calculate for you on your end. So it would cut down on that teacher time, because you could just run Google Forms and have the system kind of grade it for you. You'd have to be careful because you're not going to get a huge depth of knowledge. You have to make sure you word your questions properly, but the possibility is there. As far as the adaptive engines category, I didn't see much in the form of data collection other than what the teachers picking up on their own for what the students have completed. The interoperability, like I said, you're able to bring in those other pieces to the puzzle. So because of that, it kind of plays well with other programs. I think I'm reading that appropriately. The cognitive load. There is a ton of content on here. So the free videos that they mentioned, 7,000 of them, the simulations, there's a ton of them. So as far as that goes, there is a lot, but as long as you kind of pare down what you need in your class by creating those playlists, I think you'll be fine. You can control how much cognitive load you're presenting to the students. As far as data collection goes, I think that's kind of, once again, up to the teacher how much they want to collect from it, but I didn't really see that inbuilt into the system. Self-pacing, this is great for that. You can kind of throw the playlist at the students and kind of let them go, as long as they stay within kind of a predetermined amount of time. I think it would be completely usable in that way. And then lastly, UDL ideas. I didn't see much in the form of closed captioning or anything like that. Other than that, it's kind of a pared down system, so there's not an overabundance of loud color screaming at you, which would help students that are visually impaired. But as far as like closed captioning and stuff like that, it is lacking. So I'm just about out of time, but that is my analysis of Hippocampus and the architecture of my classroom. Thank you. I look forward to the discussions.